Welcome to wildernessbushcraft.ca. I'm Bushcraft Adam, and I'm just getting set here to split a nice piece of wood, a nice piece of maple, frozen piece, so it should split very nicely. A couple bangs here, and the axe will split it right down the middle. Pretty simple to do. Obviously, just focusing on setting the axe properly. Now, what I'm looking at is basically the grain itself. I noticed earlier that this particular branch has a nice curvature to it. I want to use that in the design of my spoon. And before I do that, I want to look at removing the pith as much as possible. I'm going to create a nice flat surface that's going to allow me to draw on my spoon. The pith is essential to remove in greenwood carving, as that's really the most moisture and concentration within the piece of wood. And as that starts to dry, it contracts, and as it contracts, the wood fibers will begin to split. So I'll have at that right now, and from there I'll draw on my spoon. As I'm chopping here, you'll notice I'm using a sweeping motion, which is actually slicing through the wood. I'm focusing my efforts on driving down, and of course any of my missed strokes will end up on the nice piece of wood that I'm using as a chopping blocks. If you're taking larger strokes, it's important to step to the side to allow your axe to actually swing through if it were to miss the chopping block, missing your legs as well. I'm choking up on the handle here nicely because I'm making more of a precision cut and using some of that sweeping motion to make the slicing do the majority of the work, for me. Again, you can always choke away from the handle further down for your larger cuts, but in particular, I don't really use this particular axe for it. It's more of a carving axe, as you can see by the nice curvature of the blade. I've removed most of the pith, and what I'm showing here right now is the curvature, the slight curvature of the grain within the wood, and that's actually where I'm going to create my bowl, is on the bark side itself, and I'm going to start making my way to do that now. Okay, so now that I've got the outline done and my spoon drawn in, I'm going to want to remove large sections of wood. This is relatively easy, and the way that I accomplish this is by making smaller chops, sliding up the piece of wood, which will allow me to make a larger chop at the top, removing the most wood as possible. And as I work my way towards the bowl, I'm going to take particular note not striking into the bowl or striking down into the bowl as they rotate the wood over, which will thus create cracks or potentially damage the outline of the spoon which I've created. So to help me accomplish that, I'm going to turn the piece of wood over on the side just a little bit to make a perpendicular cut in, which will allow me to penetrate into the wood, and now I can turn it over and strike down into that same chop, which will help me remove the wood around the curve of the bowl. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm just basically showing that I'm getting closer and closer to the outline, but what I did is, because I'm relatively new to this, I actually cheated a little bit. So when I drew the outline, I gave myself a lot of room to play with, which will allow me to whittle down the wood closer and closer. I really want to have a narrower neck, thicker in a vertical plane. And what I'm showing here is I actually want to use the bark side, as that's the way the grain is curving, to create my bowl. So I'm going to start to chop away at this section, creating a nice flat surface, again using that grain to help in the shape of the spoon or the spatula itself. Okay, I'm going to start striking down again towards the handle, so I'm going to take note to make sure that my finishing cut doesn't hit the bowl itself. I should say I'm striking down into the bowl. I'm making small, shallow cuts here, just removing the wood closer and closer to the outline. You'll notice that I'm making sweeping cuts, which is more of a slicing motion. I'm using the shape of the axe, a carving axe, to do the majority of work for me. So again, as I'm swiping down, I'm pulling into my body, creating that slicing motion, which is helping me make some finer cuts along the wood of the spoon.
So this side looks act as a stop barrier. Look, I'll keep going.
Okay, what I'm going to focus on now is really carving out the bowl or the flat side of the spatula, making a few finer adjustments here around the neck. I'm going to work my way into the spatula itself, which is actually the top of the bark here. Again, this is all due to the grain that I've noticed within the wood. It isn't a large curve where you can make some really ladle-like spoons, but it's a nice curve enough to use for a spatula. And my original intent was to make a piece of or a spoon out of this wood. But again, noting the grain, I decided that in this particular instance, it'd be better to make a spatula. Again, using the slicing cuts that I mentioned earlier, I'm flattening out the top of the spatula. I really haven't given it much shape up until this point, but you can see that the actual general shape of the spatula is taking place. Cutting the underside here is going to help me curve and utilize the grain and narrow the underside of the spatula. And already you can start to see that I'm taking and following the natural curvature of the grain itself. So I'm going to make a few more cuts here, and as I do that, I hope you enjoy watching.
Good. So the spatula's starting to take shape. I'm going to leave that as is right now for the thickness. I'll do some more knife work around here as I get going, and I'll bring this down a little bit more. Now, the natural shape of a spoon kind of comes up high and sweeps back out. So I'm going to take out some of this, and some of the back handle here, so as I come out I kind of get that nice S shape to it. And you can start to see that again taking shape. I'm going to counter the work that I've done through here now on this side to bring the handle down, the top of the handle right here. Maybe that's a better view, to come flush across. As you can see, what I've done with all my carvings, I kept it really harsh. And I find that at this point, in trying to get too creative with the axe at this point, just because I am still learning, it is actually easier and provides me a better surface to work with for the knife, and keeps the lines really simple. Doesn't make it too.
Okay, I'm just wrapping up now, just making some finer adjustments to the spatula itself. I find that when I was first starting, going too far with the axe was detrimental. Trying to figure out how far you can go and how far you can cut with the axe is definitely something I had to learn to play with. So as I've done that, and you can find that generally you can use the knife to help you correct a lot of your mistakes. If you do, however, go too far with the knife, you'll find that you'll whittle your way or axe your way into nothing. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Basically, the spoon is or spatula is starting to take shape, and I hope I gave you some insight on how to use an axe to help you start carving green wood.